I'm going to be speaking about vibe coding, and the subtitle here is how business leaders are building software without writing code. By show of hands, who has heard of the term vibe coding? Raise your hand. Okay, keep your hand up if you have actually vibe coded before. It's always good to get a sense of the room. If you've never heard of vibe coding, that's great. I'm going to explain it to you as well on the next slide. Also, obligatory slide, when you ask AI, how would you visualize vibe coding? This is what AI came up with. So it seems like a very transcendent experience. I want that. So history of vibe coding doesn't have a long history, but it actually originates from this tweet a little over a year ago by Andrej Karpathy. So Andrej is actually one of the founding engineers of OpenAI, and he tweeted that there's a new kind of coding I call vibe coding, where you fully give into the vibes, embrace exponentials, whatever that means, and forget that the code even exists. It's possible because the LLMs are getting too good. He says, I just talked to Composer with Super Whisper and I barely touched the keyboard. I ask for the dumbest things, like decrease the padding on the sidebar by half, because I'm too lazy to find it. I accept all, always. I don't read the diffs anymore. When I get error messages, I just copy and paste them in with no comment. Usually that fixes it, and so on and so forth. But you get the idea. So he was making an observation about what coding had become for himself as one of the leading engineers building this stuff. He recently said in an interview he has not touched a line of code in months. And this is one of the world's best engineers out there. And this term kind of took off because more and more people started seeing that what he was describing became a reality. Now, Andrej actually no longer really likes the term vibe coding. He says he prefers agentic engineering, but I think the cat's out of the bag on this one. So this is me. My name is Mattan. What's important here is actually I don't come from a traditional academic background. Instead, I have built startups my entire career. Several, but two that are relevant, 1 Month and Ophelia. I had the fortune to be accepted into Y Combinator twice, and I got to go through the program and building startups and raising venture funding and building businesses in very different spaces, first in education, then in healthcare. I've also been very lucky that I've actually been teaching here at Columbia Business School for the last 10 years. I just had my 10-year anniversary, which might be surprising. Thank you. But what I teach is, I teach Python for MBAs, I teach Intro to Databases for Business Analytics, I teach Foundations of Entrepreneurship, and I have a new class coming up in the fall called Vibe Coding. So you can tell I'm a little bit ADD, but I really enjoy this stuff, and vibe coding is at the intersection of both of those things. In my most recent entrepreneurship class, with the emergence of AI and the ability to vibe code, here are some of the products that some of my students built, literally in the class. This one is this is a tool for influencers to be able to track and improve their social media, which posts are doing better and worse, and it's kind of an agency tech model. This one I really love. This is a funding model for up-and-coming artists that don't necessarily want to sell away their rights to record labels, so they can actually sort of crowdfund essentially and release their albums. This is one where you can build your own accessory dwelling units on your home. All of these were built in less than 7 minutes. I'm going to show you. I'm going to do a live coding demo today, so we'll see. But this is what's possible today, right? And that should maybe scare and excite you at the same time. Because I teach entrepreneurship, I often use the frame of a startup, but all of this stuff applies within the business context. But I did a little bit of research and estimation and found that the average cost to start a startup has dropped by 10,000x in the last 25 years. So if you go back to the year 2000, it costs on average $5 million to build a startup. And that's because you literally had to buy servers, set them up in a rack in the closet. You had to hire someone, pay them over $150,000 to maintain those servers so they wouldn't go down. You had to pay Oracle for multi-$100,000 license. And then a few years later, you have Amazon Web Services, and now you no longer need to set up your own servers. And then you have open source and free open source libraries, and then languages like Ruby on Rails or Django, these frameworks that helped people write code way faster. And that trend has just continued, so that today we're able to see people launch products for sometimes $0, but generally as cheap as $20 a month. $10 for students here for the latest Claude Code or Lovable or Open AI subscription. We love 2x2s at the business school, and this is a matrix that I like to teach about how to leverage AI from a business perspective. The axes here are, at the bottom you have your expertise in a particular task, and on the left you have the stakes of the task. Or is it a high stakes or a low stakes task? And I present this to people who want to start businesses and say, well, if you're a beginner at a task and it's low stake, just let the AI take the lead, right? I mean, if it's designing a logo, fine. If it's a high stake task but you're a beginner, use it as a tutor. Have it teach you the thing, right? Because you are ultimately still responsible for the quality of the output. But if you're an expert and it's low stakes, let it accelerate you. Let it make you 10 times faster by drafting emails for you or doing meeting summaries or doing slide decks. And if you're an expert and it's high stakes, let it be a thought partner, right? Have it challenge you. Have it help you think of ideas, maybe push the bounds of how you're currently thinking. But an important thing here is you're using it in all of these contexts, and not only in all these contexts, but across all of the business functions. I'm not going to read through all of this, but in product development, we're obviously seeing AI accelerating engineering and product teams. In customer service, I mean, 80 to 90% of most companies are laying off 80 to 90% of their customer service staff because AI is so good at that, and at a higher level of quality than the average person. But also sales and marketing and finance and legal and operations, just to name a few of these areas we're starting to see. And specifically, some of the data shows a 2 to 5x increase in engineering productivity when using these AI coding assistants and customer service teams, as I mentioned. For those of you, in businesses, thinking of starting businesses or thinking about using AI, you really need to get good at setting up systems and not be afraid to get your hands dirty. That's the main bit of advice that we give students these days, right? There has been in the past some of this mentality of, oh, I'm not technical, so I'm just going to hire an engineer or a head of technology and they're going to do that for me. Even in non-technical fields these days, your ability to 10x yourself will rely on your willingness to explore the new technology, set up these systems, and really dive in. And if you're hiring, you want people who are able to show that they can do these things as well. Sandra talked about, right, like the crushing of the performance, the deviation between human performance being potentially really high and really low. AI outperforms most people's average performance, but the band is much smaller, right? So you don't get those necessarily incredibly visionary exceptional, but you also don't get the low lows. And there's Daniel Kahneman, the late Daniel Kahneman, published a book called Noise, right, as one of the last things that he wrote about. And he says there's a lot has been said about biases, but actually noise is the biggest problem. And noise is just the variation that comes anytime you introduce a human into a process. There's a tremendous cost to noise, and you can see here that when you're building a business process, you can imagine why actually eliminating some of the worst possible performance, if you're training your customer support team, could actually deliver a lot of value for a business, right? There's also the CEO of Shopify recently had a memo leaked. An employee leaked it, and so he ended up just saying, okay, I'll post it. But in this memo, he talks about Shopify's stance on AI. And one of their positions is hire AI before you hire any new person. Before you can get approval for a role, you're going to have to show us that AI won't be able to do it. And then he has this quote that I pull out, which is, frankly, I don't think it's feasible to opt out of learning the skill of applying AI in your craft. You're welcome to try, but I want to be honest. I don't see it working out today, and definitely not tomorrow. So I think that sets a little bit of like a flag in the ground for where we want to be at. Now, talking about coding, there's a lot of tools out there, and so I like this framework of high to low abstraction in terms of tools. So there's tools at the high level, which I think of the vibe coding, these prompting to product tools, where you don't ever have to look at code. And then on the bottom, you have AI native code editors, where you're writing code, but the AI is helping you. And in the middle, you have large language models that are kind of medium abstraction. And I'm going to show you one, and just as a caveat, live coding is an insane thing to do because you have no idea what it's going to do. But I like to give this example of build me a web app that analyzes some bit of data, because we all analyze data daily, so it's pretty natural. And there's a few tools that I often show, but I'm going to use one called Lovable. And the prompt I'm going to give is build me a web app that analyzes this data. So I actually went ahead, and there's a site called Kaggle that's like a data science site, and they have a lot of data sets. And I've pulled a data set on the AI impact of jobs in the year 2030. I haven't really taken much of a look, but I'm going to say build me a web app that analyzes this data. And I'm just going to attach this file. And then I'm just going to see what it does. I'm going to do this in the background because it might take a little bit. Now, there was a lot in the past that they used to say about prompt engineering and writing the perfect prompt. That's not really very necessary anymore because the AI has gotten so good at figuring out what you want to do. So we're going to let this run a little bit in the background. I'm also, I used to have a prompt for like an actual business that I would run through it, but I decided that was boring, and literally about an hour and a half ago, I vibe coded this tool that I'm going to show you, which helps you come up with a new business idea. So you can shuffle like Yelp for board game groups, or Discord for plumbers, or let's see, something fun, Pinterest for city commuters. How about TikTok for thrift flippers? I don't actually know what a thrift flipper is, but maybe there's some of you out there. And I'm going to click Generate Prompt, and this actually generates a prompt that I'm also going to plug into Lovable, and we'll see what it comes up with. Okay, now let's look back. The original one is still working. Lovable is one of these tools basically where you give it a prompt and it designs the whole thing for you. So that's at the highest level of abstraction. You can use a tool like Claude Code, for those of you who have heard of it. I have a minute left, so we'll see if the LLM can get this done. But at the highest level, these tools can let you get a lot done. So let me go through some of the slides. I was going to say what it's doing is it's building an application for you. Every application is a front end and a back end. The front end is what you see, and the back end is what you don't see. And so when you're building these tools, you don't really need to know what's going on behind the scenes. But as you start to build them, you start to find actually that some level of understanding ends up being helpful. You can guide it in some directions, or sometimes you run into a situation where it's helpful to know. Let me jump forward to the first thing I'll say is sometimes things get weird with AI. Here's one of my favorite examples that I pull up, which is a screenshot of someone using AI. And I'll point out the important parts. Someone says, here's a plan, that's the full plan, shall I implement it? And the person responds, no. And then you can see the AI is thinking. The user said no to my question, shall I implement it? But looking at the context, I think they're saying no to me asking for permission, meaning just do it. Stop asking. Let me reread. Yeah, definitely looking at it, this confirms the user wants me to implement it without asking. Let me implement the changes, and then it starts doing it. So AI is not predictable, and it's really weird and probabilistic, and we've already started to see a lot of these examples out there in the wild. Okay, so here's the thing that it built. I'll just show it in the background. This is a live dashboard website analyzing the data, and you can already see jobs analyzed, average salary. You can go through distribution, hiring trends, et cetera. But one of the cool things about building this as a product is it doesn't just end there. And that's a big takeaway, is iterate with these things. It has add dashboard filters. It gives me even suggestions. So I'll run that, and then we'll see it start to add filters. I could tell it pull out insights, show it to me as a page, run regressions. It's like having a data analyst. And if I was a data analyst, I would use this as well, because it's so easy to just have it do the high-level visualization for me. We don't have thrift flicky there, so if anyone's curious about it, on the back end afterwards, come up and I'll show you what it comes up with. So how do you stay up to date on the latest of this stuff? There's a few resources that I love to refer. There's a site called deeplearning.ai started by Andrew Ng, founder of Coursera and Stanford professor, has a bunch of courses and a great newsletter on AI. There's a Substack called One Useful Thing by a Penn professor named Ethan Malik, where he talks about using AI in the classroom, and it's one that I definitely follow. Y Combinator has its own kind of Reddit, where actually 10 million engineers read this every single day. It's super basic, but the CTO of Microsoft reads this. And this is when something new happens, it ends up here on the front page. And as a challenge, I often give my students, go here and pick one thing a day that you don't understand, and go through the comments and try to understand. Or now, ask AI to explain it to you. Another fun one is to look at Y Combinator's startup directory, pick the most recent batch, and see which kind of companies are coming through that. You can already see autonomous customer operations, an AI buddy that lives on your Mac, actuarial intelligence for corporate risk managers. There's 170 startups going through their most recent batch that are public. Most of them are AI, and this is the future of businesses, right? Many of these businesses are going to go on and have a huge impact. So if you want to stay ahead of the trend, follow these. Also, the best thing to do is just get comfortable with LLMs and what they can do for you. So I recently taught my AI a skill to add all 75 of my students on LinkedIn. I also have my AI plan my day for me. I mentioned I'm pretty ADD, so I connected it to my to-do list, my email, my calendar, And I like to start the day by just saying, tell me what the highest priority thing is. I don't want to think about it, and I'll work on that thing. So I get to offload that sort of cognitive executive level functioning. Anthropic has this thing they call the AI Fluency Index, where they're starting to assess people's level of fluency with the AI. And big parts are iteration and refinement. So are you clarifying your goal? Are you providing examples? Are you identifying missing context? These things emerge naturally the more you engage with it, but if you just do a one-shot, one and done, and you're like either happy with it or this doesn't do what I need it to do, you never end up getting there. And this is a very important piece. So I'm gonna close with what I call the 7-day challenge. Just for the next 7 days, commit to using an AI tool each day for one new task that you didn't previously think it was capable of. And if you're not sure it can do something, ask it. Can I connect you to my to-do app? If so, walk me through the steps. That's, I was like, oh, I'm tired of doing this thing. Let me see if the AI can do it for me. And as a bonus, start an AI brain trust. This is actually something a friend of mine did because he said, things are moving so fast, I don't understand it. He created a little Signal group, put 5 of us in it, and it's probably the resource that I use the most to see what's going on. People are sharing examples, they're sharing news stories. Did you see this? And this is relevant for all of us, so I highly recommend doing something like this. Key takeaways, last slide. AI is lowering the cost and speeding up the time to build a new product. There's a typo, so I didn't use AI for this. Which means lower barrier to entry, but also more competition. So we're only starting to understand what that means from like a strategic and competitive advantage perspective. 2, require all your employees to use AI. I require my students to use it, but I expect 3 to 4 times as much. So that's my way of dealing with it. I don't ban AI, I expect it, because that's what they're expected to do in the workplace now. And also, these are weird times. The rules no longer apply. I don't know what's gonna happen. You could ask me for a prediction, but I'll make it up. And that's it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.